Welcome to No More Illusions, the show that helps you see clearly so you can soar. Today, we have a great guest for you today, Ross Marshall, former KPMG colleague of mine through Luis Rosado, who I know through Alpha, and just an all-around great guy. We've stayed in touch, had some great conversations, and I was so excited that he's going to be our first guest on No More Illusions. Well, Ross is with us today. We're not in the same room, so just to get us started, I wanted to ask Ross, where are you calling from and what do you see when you look around you?
Joe, thank you so much for having me on the show. First guest, I feel really privileged here. And thank you for the nice intro. Today, I'm actually down at my parents' place outside of Philadelphia, Westchester, Pennsylvania, a little college town. And when I look out, it is very green. It's like spring is finally here. I live in Boston. It hasn't quite touched us yet. But here I'm seeing the little buds on the trees. The green is coming more lush. It's like, man, I feel spring. Haven't felt it yet in Boston.
Excellent, excellent. And when you shared with me your illusion, I recognized it right away. I think a lot of listeners will as well. So I'm really looking forward for you to unpack it and sort of share us your illusion or disillusionment journey. And your illusion was do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
Yes, I went with that because I feel that it's maybe the most inspirational career advice we give people, but it also may be the most misleading advice we also give people.
How so?
Well, because I think it may set people up for unrealistic expectations out of their career. And I think at the end of the day, that level of satisfaction, that love, that reinforcement that we're looking for is never going to happen within a job. You're going to find that in family, friends, and community. And we need to start investing in those type of things to find that fulfillment. Because if you're lucky enough to, careful what you wish for, to monetize what you love, that job's never going to love you back.
Well, this sounds like you've had a personal journey. Perhaps could you share a little bit about maybe when you had the illusion and how you started to sort of realize that maybe this isn't quite what it was cracked up to be?
It really hit me when I hooked up with Luis and we started DEI Partners because we loved consulting. We love talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, working with organizations, taking the data and making it really actionable. The problem with being in a small shop is that it's feast or famine. You get the job, all your effort goes into that, you finish out the assignment, then you're on to the next. There's a dip there. In order for that to be more steady and build out, you need to bring in other consultants, other partners here. So you're doing less and less of what you started out to doing because that's what you love doing to support other people to do what you love doing. I'm doing bookkeeping, I'm doing all this operational stuff behind the scenes, so everybody else can do what I love to do. And I usually leave those and go work for somebody else where I don't have to worry about payroll, bookkeeping, or keeping the lights on. It's much more steady. So that's the trade-off that I faced.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of practicalities that people don't consider when you think about quote unquote work, right? Like what does that mean? And what do you need to do to keep living while working?
And to that, love it can be a noun, but it's more than a feeling. It's a verb. It's an action. So if you love something and you're able to monetize that, you're going to work harder than ever to make that happen on the daily. So it can be exhausting. It can have a lot of uncertainty. So you need this family, friends, and community to support you through these kind of endeavors.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear a lot about how people who do end up going the more entrepreneurial route, there's a certain level of control. And we were talking about this before we started the podcast, right? You're your own boss. But also it's not like it's easier. It's not like the commitment level is less. If anything, it's somehow the opposite, right? You're always on and it's always everything's on you.
And you're doing things that you never thought you would have to do in the sense that nobody starts a business to fundraise.
Hmm.
It's probably the least enjoyable part of the whole experience. Having to ask, your friends and family for money and then go ask perfect strangers for money.
Yeah.
It's a humbling experience. It's intimidating, and it's something that you don't necessarily think about when you get that that great idea.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it sort of speaks to why you can hit a lot of resistance where people either they've been laid off or maybe they're quite, risk seeking and they decide, oh, I'm just going to quit my job and they go off and do it. And, unless they're initially like super successful, a lot of people end up going back to, let's say, a quote unquote more traditional way of employment because it isn't what they thought it would be.
It's so much more than what you thought it would be, and it's so much different than what it is in the TV and movies. Like I don't come from a whole lot of privilege in the sense that I don't have a whole lot of money laying around. I don't the thought of just quitting
Yeah.
and doing some things full time.
Yeah.
Um, it's a lot of uncertainty there, and it's really hard to think about, how you're going to put that together unless you have those pieces already in place before you even take that leap. I've always been a fan of bootstrapping it, hold on to the equity, but in order to do that, I need a full-time gig to support it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, one thing I've been hearing about is sort of alternatives to this sort of romanticized, like, okay, I have a great idea. I'm going to build it from scratch. So even like MBAs, a lot of what I read an article about what they're doing is, they find that it's smarter to buy an existing business or franchise, which has the customer set up, has all the processes set up. Like, why would you invent that from scratch when there's a thriving business with someone who's ready to retire and they'll just sell it to you, take out a loan, buy the business?
It may not sound like the most exciting business compared to what they're doing at tech or what Elon Musk is talking about doing this week, but those low tech kind of jobs like the HVAC,
Mm-hmm.
the plumbing, like they're the ones that we're going to need forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it just can be a little intimidating hopping into an industry where you don't have a whole lot of experience or expertise in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we don't know each other super duper well, but you know me a little bit, and being a lawyer, I'm very risk averse. And so, although I love doing leadership training, podcasting, and don't mind making a little extra money on the side, it's my side hustle. I never really had any dreams of doing this full time unless I did retire or won the lotto. Then I would definitely quit my job. We met someone the other day at work who's quite young, and they were the only person in the room who said if they won the lotto, they would come back and they would continue to work because they really enjoy their team.
Oh my
We were
goodness,
like, you
that's
are
so
so
hilarious.
young.
Yeah, work doesn't is great if you don't have to be there.
Oh
But
boy.
yeah, I mean, yeah, to that, I think there's a lot of people looking for shortcuts in their careers, but
Mm.
there really is no shortcut to achieving what you want. You sort of got to put the time in there, put the effort in there, and and I think that a lot of young people, with biodiversity, I spend a lot of time talking to young people and telling them that do what you love and you never work a day in your life is confusing
Hmm.
because to them they're like, well, what should I do then?
Hmm.
Where I'm early in my career, in my first real job, and I don't love everything about this job. Am I doing this wrong? Maybe I should leave. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. Like all this doubt builds up.
Hmm.
And the reality is, you probably are doing it wrong, but so are the rest of us. We just don't talk about it. We're just faking it till we make it. And I think there's a lot of mixed messages out there. I think it's confusing to young people. And I think it's almost like choice paralysis,
Hmm.
unable to make a decision about how to move forward because you're supposed to be getting all this joy out of it, but it's really not, you're not really seeing it.
Well, one thing that's interesting about this conversation, Ross, is, I feel like a mistake we often make is we make things too binary, right? It's like, oh, I either have to
Mhm.
work a job that I can't stand and I'm a sellout and I'm making boku bucks, or I have to do, a job that I love and now I'm financially unstable and,
Yeah.
I'm not going to get compensated. But there's all these levels in between as well.
There really are. And I would say somebody in a career, like if you enjoy what you do and you're somewhat talented at it, that's probably your sweet spot.
Yeah.
And lean into it and recognize that there's going to probably be some good with the bad. But what gets you through that is these relationships that you invested in outside of work.
Yeah, yeah. Well, before we came on, you were talking a little bit about a really exciting program you involved with recently with the medical technicians. I would love for you to share a little bit more about that and how fulfilling work, can be when you find some really fulfilling work.
Yeah, actually, I've had the opportunity to work on like 70 different startups. And this was the first one that was a nonprofit one. It was for
Hmm.
workforce development. It was very geared to the biotech pharma industry. And if you look at that, I mean, the industry is covered with PhDs and MBAs and, you know, higher degrees.
Sure.
But we looked at lab operations, and these are the people that are supporting the science, they're running the labs. There's a whole career pathway from entry level to director, senior director, VP of operations. These are jobs this is a vector in that industry where you can get in there with no college degree. So we were able to focus a program hands-on for 8 weeks, Monday through Thursday, 6 hours a day. And you learn lab skills. You learn how to run a lab.
Wow.
And then we were able to leverage our relationships with the industry to bring them to us and say, hey, listen, you say you need people in these operational roles. We have the talent here. And it was just a really great connection there. They gave us a chance. They brought him in. That went well. That built momentum up. In 2 years, we graduated 118 students that were placed into industry. And that was very exciting because you're talking to somebody that's coming from, at best, minimum wage job,
Wow.
at best. And so now you're starting around $25 an hour, $35 an hour with benefits.
Mm.
I've had students placed at Vertex calling me up. What do I do about stock options? You're 21 and a half years old with no college education. You're talking about stock options?
Amazing. Amazing.
Amazing. It really, and it's tremendously rewarding to see what kind of impact you have on people and their lives and their families.
Yeah.
And so that was probably, without doubt, the most rewarding
Mm.
opportunity work I've ever done.
Well, one thing that never ceases to amaze me is, especially where we're fortunate enough to live in a country that, is quite wealthy and has lots of great businesses. Like there is a lot of money out there, but it's not equally accessible to everyone, right? Like to be
Sure.
like I like to think of the metaphor like to be near the stream of the money so you get a little bit, wet, right? For some people, they're just right there. But for other people, it can be harder to access it. So it's not always for lack of ability. Sometimes it's just lack of access or awareness or networks. It's a big, I don't want to call it a problem, but it's like a big discrepancy.
It is. And I just heard something today, like this guy, he was like from the 1920s, he was like the second richest man in America at the time.
Oh, wow.
And he was saying that he got successful because he was able to get into these rooms with uber wealthy people.
Hmm.
He's like, I didn't even know, I didn't even talk to anybody, but I was just in the proximity of this.
Yeah,
And it's like almost like this momentum that you build up. You be around successful people, you tend to be more successful.
of course.
And I think that throughout life, you should probably be with the smart people in the room. You shouldn't be the smartest person there. If I'm the smartest person in the room, we got trouble. We got problems. So, surround yourself with smart people, surround yourself with people who are doing positive things. I would also say that I've never had better outcomes, ROI, than I have when I volunteered on something.
Oh, wow.
When I was in the film and TV industry back 3 lifetimes ago, I wanted to get into the grip union.
Okay.
And then the way you can only get into union is you have to work on a union show, but you can only work on a union show if you're a union. So it's like, how do you do that, right?
Yeah, it's magic.
I was working non-union jobs, making literally $80 or $100 a day for 12 hours.
Wow.
And I volunteered to work on this non-union movie. They had grips and everybody else that were in the union that worked on ER. They were helping
Wow.
the friends out.
Mhm.
We got along well. They brought me on to ER. I got my union days that way. And I've
Amazing.
always had good success by volunteering. If it's a good cause, why not help out? It's rewarding. You're helping out the community, and you never know what things will come out of it.
Yeah, yeah. It's you may know him, Kaplan Mowbray, who's quite a motivational speaker, sort of an informal mentor of mine. And I remember I was talking to him once and asking him for some advice, and he said something that I always remember. I was asking about like how he's so great at like generating business, and because he's
Yeah,
got all these great engagements, and then he goes, Joe, sometimes the give is the ask. It's exactly what you were saying. Sometimes when you give, that's how the ask comes. It's not always just ask, 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 ask. It's the nature of who you give to, how you give, what you're giving generates
yeah.
that ask to come back later, where they're like, that's what Ross is about, that's what Joe's about, that's what Kaplan's about, rather than gimme, 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 gimme.
See, Kaplan would always say it better than me. I give it to him. But thinking about it, I met him. He's good friends with this guy, Paul Francisco,
Okay.
who works at State Street. And I met him because I was able to put myself in the right room. They were at the Harvard Club up here in Boston. That's where
Oh,
I met
what?
him. So I work hard to put myself in these rooms.
Yeah.
But I met your mentor,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's a great guy. And I've seen him on stage,
Oh,
and
yeah.
the energy
Oh,
and it's like off the charts.
unbelievable. I
Unbelievable.
don't think I've ever seen anyone with he's right up there with like a Tony Robbins, with a Mel Robbins. Like he's just at the top
At the
of the
top,
game.
and like I met him once at the Harvard, and this was like literally 6 months later. He acted like he knew me, like he remembered me. I don't know.
Mhm.
I think he was BSing, but
No, no, he's a
he
great
made me
guy.
feel
Yeah.
like that. I was like, man, he remembered me. He's special. He's a special person.
So I find it really interesting what you said about being, in the room and the Harbor Club. I'm working on a concept right now of a book called The Credibility Gap,
Hmm.
and it's about being a high performer, but the gap is the decision makers don't perceive your high performance. There's gaps. They can't quite get to see you clearly,
Yeah.
and one of the gaps is visibility, right?
Hmm.
They don't You're literally like invisible to them, right? Even though you're doing great work because they're up somewhere else, right?
Yes.
And one of the sort of strategies I'm writing about is once you're visible, there's rooms that you are not in that you want to get in, which is exactly what you were talking about, right? Like, how do you get into the right rooms to get your career or opportunities going the way you want it to go? Because there are people in those rooms making decisions,
Yeah.
spending money, having all these opportunities. And you don't need to be in every room, but you need to be in the right rooms.
You got to tell yourself that they need my experience in that room. They may not know it, but they
Mhm.
do.
Yeah. But if you're not in the room, see, you got to get in the room. That's the nuance, right? Like everyone knows the room exists.
Yes.
They may even know who's in the room. They may even know what time the room is open, but they're not getting in there. So
Yeah.
the strategy is, how do you get into the rooms that you need to be in that you are not currently invited to?
And it's you have to be strategic about it.
Yeah.
I take advantage of a lot of networking events here up in Boston.
Hmm.
And there's some ones out here that I find that are really, really productive and
Hmm.
make people really, really approachable.
Yeah.
There's like a Black men's dinner group,
Nice.
and it's just really Black men who are professionals that have a common interest in building community.
Yep.
And that's where I met Paul Francisco. I was like, Paul, I asked him some questions. I said, hey, I'm new to town, looking to build a community, and I would like to do something besides golf. And he's like, hey, let's go do this thing. Let's try this thing. Have you tried this? Try that? And he's like, I'm having some people over at the Harbor Club. You should meet them.
Mm.
So put yourself out there. Tell them the truth. Not always have to convey this sense of presence that you don't need anybody.
Right. Well, also, it's kind of counterintuitive, but I think very true that like the most business gets done when it's not really about the business. It's about building community, building trust, and then naturally the business, when it's right, just kind of follows. And that's when real work gets done, not because we exchange business cards. That's
That's the truth. I call that the Michael Scott effect.
the Michael Scott effect.
Sometimes he's just off the wall nuts, but with a customer or a
Yeah.
client, you're like they're not talking about business. They're talking about their drinks, they're talking about making bubbles, and but he closes the deal, and
Yeah.
it's exaggerated and funny, but
Yeah.
it's very true to real life.
Well, I would love for you to share a little bit about what can go wrong while you're under this illusion that like, oh, if I'm doing something I love, everything's going to go easy. It'll never feel like work. Like what can happen when you're under that illusion?
I think disillusionment
Mhm.
at the core there, and never really being satisfied with what you're doing because you feel like you're missing out and you're not doing it right.
Mm.
Um, and I think that in American culture, especially for men, it's too easy to be caught up that your identity is tied in with your job
Oh, big time.
and your performance.
Yeah.
And we really got to break that model.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's a very complex one to take out, and I think that's a real big problem with us.
And your value, it always seemed very upsetting to me where you get yourself into a position where your value is determined by what an organization is willing to tell you your value is, right? They set your salary, they give you your bonus, they tell you when you're ready to be promoted, and you start to
Yes,
believe that, oh, if that person's getting promoted faster than me, they must be more valuable. I'm not doing something right when, it's much
yes.
more nuanced than that.
And I'll even throw this in there. A lot of people feel that you have to move up to being a manager
Mhm.
and doing these other things here. But if you like what you're doing,
Mhm.
you may not like managing people doing what you used to do.
Absolutely.
And you may be pulling yourself from what really gave you pleasure or joy in this role because you felt like the expectation was that you had to move up or move into this direction when you can move in other directions there that are probably better fitting to you.
Now, I would never sort of badmouth anyone who's like a CEO or has a certain, level of high level executive success, but I will draw upon your earlier conversation, the wisdom there to say that sometimes the people who go to the top are the ones who are more adaptable, who are more willing to do the things that they don't really want to do.
Sure.
And it's like there's a lot of people who could go to the top, but quite reasonably, I think, just say, you know what? I I don't want to go there. It's not worth it for me. And so they kind of exit. So in a way, there's sort of like it's almost like Survivor, right? It's like the person at the end is like the one who survives, and then there's no one left. And, again, I'm not like criticizing their skills or anything, but I think there is a certain level of like doggedness and survivalship and just willing to just do what others are not willing that it takes to get to the top sometimes.
So true. I look at my own life, and the very personal part there is that I sacrificed having relationships and possibly developing those relationships to have kids
Mhm.
because I put the job first.
Mm.
Because I always thought there would be more time for that.
Yeah, yeah,
I think the only thing that would have been worse is to have kids and then put the job in front of the family and spent more time on a stupid job than with building up family.
yeah, yeah. And I think in a strange sort of way, COVID kind of made people more aware of that, right? It was a bit
Sure.
of a family reset for a lot of people because you were home more, you got to connect a little bit more. I know for me, it was quite normal for me to leave in the morning, right? See my kid for a few minutes, and they would be at school, I'd be at work, and just not see them just for a couple hours at the end of the day. But there was a almost strangely magical period where we were all kind of home together and we got
Yeah.
to know each other better, spend more time. And, not that I would wish for us to have COVID again, but certainly that was a strange sort of benefit that we experienced as a family.
So, it was interesting that things that were impossible, like you could never work from home. I mean, well,
No.
at KPMG, we had one day a week,
And you
right?
had
And
to
that
get
was
like a
like,
special dispensation
right?
kind of thing.
Like I had been there like a couple few years before they could trust me to work from home one day a
Yeah.
week. It was impossible,
Hmm.
and overnight,
Hmm.
it all became possible
Yeah.
and opened up other opportunities for us to live differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and either made us or break us with people.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been a really, really great conversation with you, Ross. Before we go, is there anything you'd like to share about how people can get in touch with you or learn more about the great work that you're doing?
Yeah, I'm really big on LinkedIn. So it's Ross Marshall Community. So I spend a lot of time and effort into building. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me. Or you could check out capitalpilot.pro. That's our new startup, and we're launching that at the end of the month. So either way, you can find me.
All right. Thanks so much, Ross, for being our inaugural guest on No More
Woo!
Illusions. And I look forward to staying connected and hearing more about your next adventures.
I appreciate you, Joe. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks.
Peace.
Quick announcement. I'm excited to share that Unlock Your Executive Presence, Feel Like a Boss is now available as an audiobook. You can get it at connectioncounselor.com or just search Unlock Your Executive Presence on Amazon or Audible. It's my second audiobook, and I took a lot of care producing and narrating it for those of you who'd rather listen than read about how to actually generate executive presence. Thanks for listening to No More Illusions. I'm Joe Kwon, the Connection Counselor. Take care, and remember, clarity reveals, illusion steals.